Welcome back, everyone, to the Unbroken Arrows Healing Through the Hunt podcast. Today, I wanted to give you a little bit different introduction because we have two guests today. First off, we will have Isaac Rubendall of the South Dakota Game Parks. And then we'll have Greg Wagner from the Nebraska Game Parks. And both will be talking to us about the opening of the state parks in the states of South Dakota and Nebraska. And in that transition between the two interviews, I will be playing a new piece of music that my son Trey, as you listeners know, he does our music production. And anyway, it's a new piece. And then at the end of the podcast, I will play this particular music selection in its entirety. So you will have a little bit longer outro, and it'll be a little bit different outro music. I just wanted to let you know that things are going to sound a little bit different today, and I am by myself. Catherine had to work, so today's recording, you're just going to get me this time. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, please email us at unbrokenarrowspodcast@gmail.com. And without any further ado, we'll get the podcast started for today. Welcome back to Unbroken Arrows, Healing Through the Hunt. And I'm Greg, and I'm flying solo today. Catherine has to work today, so I'm visiting with Isaac Rubendall. And Isaac is a former guest on the Unbroken Arrows podcast. I think back in January, we interviewed Isaac. But Isaac is with the South Dakota State Game Parks and is the park manager at Lake Poinsett Recreation area, which is located between Brookings and Watertown, South Dakota. So welcome back, Isaac.
Hey, thanks for having me, Greg. Glad to be back.
Hey, how are the preparations going for the opening of the 2024 camping season?
Oh, it's going pretty good. We've actually had a lot of spring to work with, which has been really nice, but almost sometimes overwhelming at the same time, just because, you can do anything and everything. And right now it's kind of looking like an iceberg, but we're chipping away. We've got one comfort station open currently out of the three, working on the other ones, trying to get them fixed up, plumbing repairs and that kind of thing. And today we're doing some tree cutting. We've got a couple trees that might be liabilities in the future for this year, depending on the storms and whatnot. So we're making sure we're taking care of that. We also have been working on the grounds. We're already mowing, which is kind of bizarre. We have not been mowing this early in the season since I've been around. But yeah, we've got projects. We've got the fish clean station open, docks are in, and people have been fishing. So been working hard and trying to get everything dialed in for the year. So,
well, good. The topic of our podcast when you were our guest previously was Beyond the Hunt. So spring turkey hunting, Isaac, have you been able to get out and do any hunting?
No, I have not. Turkey hunting for me has always been something that I have not been used to growing up or anything like that. I did not grow up turkey hunting, so I think I'm still looking for that itch to really get me going in the spring for turkey hunting. Looking for someone who's very good at calling and that kind of thing to get me that itch, because a lot of times when we start hunting or fishing, there's some experience that we have and whatever we're doing that just gets us fired up for every year. So, and I just don't really have that for turkey hunting. I hope in the future that I do get that, but no, springtime is very busy for me and getting the park ready and whatnot. So I've been, I like fishing, doing some shore fishing. So I've been doing a little bit of that. But other than that, I've been kind of working and dealing with some family stuff and just trying to keep on keeping on, getting the park ready. So
That's right. Well, if you want a good laugh, I think it was our most recent podcast that we published. The title is Greg Missed Again. So with regard to turkey hunting, I like turkey hunting, but I have not harvested a turkey yet, so Catherine kind of had to poke fun at me last week. So,
sure.
But maybe if you get out, you'll get hooked on it too. So,
sure, no, absolutely.
Well, one of the things that we talked about previously with you were the different types of events that are going to be hosted at Lake Poinsett, and you have an event coming up this weekend, correct? Which would be, this is the weekend of what, May 10th, 11th?
Yep, May 11th. So on Saturday, we're hosting our second annual Spring Walleye Derby, and this is actually something I started last year, and it's a shore fishing tournament for anyone and everyone. We've got an age group of 13 and up and an age group of 12 and under. There'll be a grand prize for both age divisions, and we'll have handouts, give outs, prizes. So we'll have prizes, but everyone will walk away with some type of either Parks gear or different tackles type stuff we like to give out, and that kind of thing. And this is another program that supports our theme for this year in the parks. And so what the theme is it's called Reelin' Memories. And so Reelin' Memories is basically a theme what we're doing this year to basically try and get people to get out fishing more. And so the more fish catches you have, the more pictures you take, and the more submissions you have, the more prizes you're able to win. So, and you can find this on Game Fish and Parks website, GFP SD.gov, I believe is the website, and all the instructions and directions are on there. But basically, go out, you catch some fish, take some photos, and submit it to a QR code. We have the signs listed around the park, and every park has the signs, and post it to the QR code, and you're submitted for some prizes. And if you just keep on going, then the more prizes you get. So it's a pretty cool deal we're having this year, trying to get people out fishing more. So
That sounds great. Now, specifically about your weekend event, what time do people need to arrive there, and what type of equipment do they need to have that advantage, I guess, in this
yep.
tournament?
Yep. So basically, check-in will be at 5:30, and so we'll have people showing up at 5:30 checking in, and then we'll go until 8 o'clock. And so we tried to set it at a time where walleye fishing is usually at its best in the low light hours. And so we will actually have fishing rods and different gear for people to use while they're at our event, and so most people will bring their own, but we'll have gear for everybody to do some fishing and be a part of the competition. And so then at 8 o'clock, we'll weigh fish and see who wins, and then we'll go from there. So,
Okay, and people that are of age that require a license need to have their own license, correct?
correct. Yep,
Hmm.
18 and above.
And I know that this may be an odd question, but I've been walleye fishing before, and 5:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. are both getting into those low light areas. So, what time are we talking, Isaac?
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. So it'd be 5:30 p.m. and 8 p.m.
Okay,
check-in time.
okay,
Yes, thank you
perfect.
for clarifying.
You bet. You've talked about shore fishing before when we visited previously, and I think that's one of the things that maybe gets left out or maybe gets lost in the shuffle nowadays when people usually go out and troll or use the bottom bouncers, into to fish. And tell me, what are some of the maybe the advantages and the perks to shore fishing?
Yeah, so in the springtime, I'm fairly new into the walleye fishing, but I know bass fairly well. But a lot of times in the springtime, fish are coming into the shallows to either feed or spawn. And so in the springtime, you'll find fish that are much shallower than they are in the middle of the summer when the temperatures of the water increase. So the advantage of shore fishing is that you are kind of right in the mix of the good fishing if the fishing is good for that particular lake. And so it's pretty cool to be able to fish from shore and actually have a good success on the shoreline in the springtime. So yeah.
Sure. Now, I have an interest in geology and archaeology, all the ologies, paleontology, anthropology, and this summer, one of the things I plan on doing is visiting the Lake Poinsett Museum. So, could you tell our listeners a little bit about the museum?
Yeah, so our museum basically started in 2007 is when the building was created, and it all really stemmed from a gentleman by the name of Harlan Olson. Harlan Olson grew up just south of the park, and he is kind of known as an amateur archaeologist, and so he found all kinds of different stuff on his property growing up. After they would till and do farming practices, when stir the ground up, he'd find different artifacts and stuff. And so in 2007, he worked with Game Fish and Parks, and they created a building where he's able to showcase all of his different artifacts. And so since then, a lot has changed. He had a lot of stuff, and he passed away in 2016, unfortunately. But we've actually worked with his daughter Lori, and We've actually been able to where she's taken away artifacts that she wanted to keep in the family name, and then there was certain artifacts that we wanted to give away and give it back to her family, and then certain artifacts we would like to keep. And we kind of found a good agreement, and everything that is in the museum currently has all been donated officially to the South Dakota Game Parks. So we actually have future plans to do some projects to that, but I would stay tuned for that. But a lot of the artifacts range from, the 1400s, the 1700s, and all different Native American artifacts. And we've got old, unique fishing antiques and hunting antiques. So a lot of variety, but a lot of good South Dakota history, and that's kind of what's important. So
I think that's one of the hidden gems that I've noticed so far, just in my short time as being a South Dakota resident. Displays and exhibits like yours. I was very impressed with the exhibit at Good Earth State Park and detailing the history of that region and the region that you're overlooking on the other side of the river into Iowa as well. So I think a lot of the state parks have these hidden gems for people that have an interest. You bet, hiking, kayaking, canoeing, fishing, camping, all of those kinds of things. But there are things to do, things to see, and maybe on those rainy days or windy days as well. So that's good.
absolutely.
Isaac, if you would you tell me a little bit about the South Dakota Fish, Game, and Parks, the Fitness Passport, that program, the Fitness Passport Challenge?
Absolutely. Yeah, so the Fitness Passport Challenge, I think, is a very underutilized and unknown option we have for South Dakota State Parks for having fun and going on adventures that may be out of your comfort zone. So the Fitness Passport Challenge is a little book, and it has every state park, recreation area, and lakeside use area, I believe, listed inside of this little book. And so what's so unique about it has the history and everything on it, but on every page for every single park, there's a specific code. So here at Lake Poinsett Recreation area, we have a little lockbox. And so on the lockbox, there's a specific code that is listed in the Fitness Passport. And so in order to know that code, you got to have the Fitness Passport Handbook. And you basically input the code into that lockbox, and you get a cool little stamp. And it's a Lake Poinsett Recreation Area stamp, and you just stamp it in your book, and you basically just add those up. And then the more you have, the more eligible you become for prizes. So it's a cool little fun deal. Nothing too serious, but just to kind of get people out and about and out of their comfort zone and explore new places.
Yeah, I like the concept. There's an article in the Spring Conservation Digest that was titled "On the Road to South Dakota State Parks," and they just provide an overview of a little weekend getaway that a person would visit four different state parks, I guess, and a state recreation area, and it would be ideal for people in and around the Sioux Falls area and the Watertown area, Brookings area to venture out and do that. And if they had their Fitness Challenge passport, they would get 5 stamps. I think the prizes begin at 10, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
On that. So, opportunity for people to get out and have some fun and work toward a goal of getting a prize. So, great
Absolutely.
concept. I like it.
Yes.
Well, Isaac, if you would, why don't you give us the review one more time of the weekend event that you have planned here at Lake Poinsett?
Okay. Yeah. So on Saturday, May 11th at 5 p.m., 5:30 p.m., we are doing a shore fishing tournament, which we call the Spring Walleye Derby. And so folks will show up, check in at 5:30. You'll write your name down. We'll get all your information, and then whatever equipment you need, we will provide for you. If you need help tying some knots, hooking on bait, we'll also have free bait for everybody, free minnows, that kind of thing. And so basically just show up, ready to fish, ready to catch some fish. And then if you have some success, you'll check in, regardless if you have success or not. We'll finish at 8 o'clock, and folks will come in and they'll basically weigh their fish. We'll have a scale, get everything tallied up, and the grand prize for either 13 and up or 12 and under will be a $50 Shields gift card. And then we'll also have some tackle boxes to give away, and then also some park skiers. So lots of good fun to be had, and the fish should be biting soon, but obviously you can't hold that to me, right, Greg?
That's right. We can't hold you accountable for no fish.
Never, never. But no, looking to have some awesome fun and get people out and out fishing, and everybody's on the same playing field when we're all fishing from shore. So super exciting, and I'm excited, and hopefully people show up.
It sounds like fun. Hey, if it's not too much trouble, Isaac, how about if somebody comes up to you and says that you heard about this event on the Unbroken Arrows podcast, you get their name and telephone number, and we'll send a hat their way.
Absolutely. That sounds good.
Okay. Well, thanks, Isaac, and thank you for your time, and we look forward to visiting with you again, and we'll probably have to get an update in terms of how the fishing derby went.
Yes, absolutely, and that sounds good. Thanks for having me on, Greg.
Okay. We'll see you later, Isaac.
Yep.
The Unbroken Arrows podcast would like to welcome back a friend of the podcast, Greg Wagner with the Nebraska Game and Parks, and we're talking with Greg today about the different types of things in the state of Nebraska, highlighting the state parks, the recreation areas, and the different activities that are really starting to ramp up in the spring. So welcome back, Greg.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate being back.
You bet. So what can you tell us about the different things that are going on in the great state of Nebraska, and with regard to the opportunities for people to get outside and get out to the parks and take advantage of the things that are happening?
Well, May is a great month. It's one of my favorite months. In our 76 area Nebraska State Park system, we are open and ready for business. All of our modern camping facilities, which would be shower houses, fish cleaning stations, dump stations for RVs, we are fully operable right now. And we're also gearing up for Saturday, May 18th. That's a big day here in the Cornhusker State. That's our open house day, our free fishing and state park entry day. That's a big thing coming up. And then right after that, of course, we're gearing up for Memorial Day weekend. And Memorial Day weekend in the Nebraska State Park system is a big camping weekend. And typically that will probably be, if the weather cooperates,
right,
our biggest weekend visitation-wise in our state park system. But we have a lot of places where we can put people. Again, we've got 76 areas statewide.
Sure. So do any of the state parks have like individual type events that are spotlighted that people could, like if they're going to go to, say, Indian Cave State Park, can they go to the website there and find out if there are any specific activities that are scheduled?
Good point. We have a neat outdoor calendar aspect to our website, outdoornebraska.gov. It's a little, you'll see the calendar and you can click it and you can see what's coming up, what's happening that particular weekend. And in our state park system, I chuckle a little bit because our state park superintendents have more events than I can almost keep track of anymore.
Oh, boy.
In our state historical parks, we have living history. And very interactive living history at places like Fort Atkinson or Fort Hartsuff. And then we have tons of naturalist programs that are hands-on. This isn't where somebody's going to lecture to you about bullfrogs. You're going to handle the bullfrog. You're going to look at that bullfrog. And so we have a lot of those programs. And, of course, we have, beginning Memorial Day through Labor Day weekend, we have all of our other visitor services going horseback riding. We have tram tours in some of our state parklands. We have all of our visitor services, our park restaurants and other facilities kicking off operation. So we have a lot going on, and some of our parks have special celebrations, celebrate anniversaries and everything, and those are tailored toward that particular locale. It's just good old-fashioned fun.
Sure. I think Probably one of the more popular state parks in Nebraska would be Mahoney State Park, located in between Lincoln and Omaha, but also Platte River State Park is located between Lincoln and Omaha, and they're different types of state parks. And you have some people that like to camp in their campers, their RVs, those types of things, but you also have people that like to get out and tent camp and maybe a little bit more rustic. What are some of those more rustic type state parks maybe, or those opportunities to camp in tents and take in the hiking trails and those kinds of things?
I'm big fans of those particular state parks, the more rustic ones, the more rough-it ones, even as Greg Wagner at 62 gets older.
Right.
So I love Indian Cave State Park. It's the little Ozarks to the north. You mentioned it at the outset of our podcast here, 90 minutes south of Omaha. It probably would be my favorite state park here in eastern Nebraska. It's very wilderness-like, has well over 20 miles of hiking trails. It has backpack clearing campsites with Adirondack shelters if you want them. It's super cool. To the north of us, 2 hours to the north, we have Ponca State Park, which is similar. And these are both in the Missouri River hilly bluff country overlooking the mighty Mo.
Mm-hmm.
And Ponca State Park has a little more modern amenities, but not totally. You can still get away from it all. You can still camp on the river bottom. There's still 15 to 20 miles of hiking trails. You can still really rough it. Those two in eastern Nebraska would be great. You mentioned Platte River State Park, the mountain biker's paradise. It's awesome. I started working there and opened that park years and years ago, and it's in the shadow of the big resort park we call Mahoney. And I tell people a lot about Platte River State Park, especially for trekking, hiking, biking. It has over 12 miles of trails. It's in the Platte River bluff country near Louisville, Nebraska. It's beautiful. It's not far from Omaha or Lincoln. And then as you spread out across Nebraska, we have some beautiful places. Probably the creme de la creme is Fort Robinson State Park, the very northwest corner of the state, about a 9-hour drive from Omaha. And it is awesome. It would be my wife's favorite state park. And there you can spend days and miles of hiking trails where you can pitch tents and really rough it on our ground or Forest Service ground. It really is beautiful. And I tell people, if you think Nebraska's all farmland or flat, boring roads with telephone poles, you've not been to the Pine Ridge of Fort Robinson State Park. It's absolutely exquisite.
That is very true. And actually, one of the things that I'll just share with you quick is back in the 90s when I started my teaching career in Omaha, I taught at Morton Junior High, and I took a group of students from Morton, Burke High School, and Omaha Northwest out to Fort Robinson for their reforestation project. And we spent a weekend planting trees that they were trying to replace from the forest fires that took place in the Pine Ridge in the 80s. So
outstanding.
So it was a fantastic trip. And now those trees, I was out there a couple of years ago, and the trees were they've grown. Let's put it that way. Looks
thank
great.
you. That really truly is outstanding. I fought that Fort Robinson forest fire in 1989, a long time ago. We were starting backfires. We were working with the professional firefighters. We were kind of in support roles, starting backfires, and we were chainsawing trees that were going to fall anyway, that were burnt through and through. And it's probably the hardest work I've ever done. But thank you for the reforestation efforts, you and all your students that are now much older.
That's right.
that Morton did out there at Fort Robinson.
Yeah, it was a great time. Now, I do remember that Soldier Creek, which is a great trout fishery there, I think it's now back on track. But Soldier Creek really took a hit with regard to that when the ash then in the runoff came into that, and it really took a hit on the trout population. So is that back and a healthy trout fishery?
It is, and you're right. The ash choked that creek and killed those fish. Following the fire, we had some big rains, and it did not bode well for the brook trout, and they are brookies in Soldier Creek, and it's back, and it is excellent. And just 2 years ago, I fished it, sneak attack on those brook trout. I think about 8 times out of 10 they foxed me. They saw me. But anyway, I love fishing brook trout, especially if you can get out there in the fall with their spawning colors. Oh, they're gorgeous. But the brook trout fishery there, also the rainbow and brown trout fishery in the White River, reestablished and is doing very well also.
Well, good. Well, I'm very familiar with Indian Cave State Park and Ponca State Park, and both of those areas, as you mentioned, on the Missouri River. And to me, or for me, I guess, spring catfishing is one of the best times to go after the channel catfish, and they're great eating in that spring cold water. And also birding, especially at Indian Cave State Park, is one of the areas that I've seen probably more birds that I added to my life list. Of course, this would have been back in my Wayne State College days when we went down and stayed there and were looking specifically for those kinds of things. But good birding, great outdoor activities other than just, camping and,
Right.
and hanging out.
And we encourage campers heading to Indian Cave State Park to bring their sugar water hummingbird feeders, because the ruby throats right now are moving through coming into Nebraska. And I encourage anybody going camping, whether it's RV or tent, is to hang a sugar water type hummingbird feeder near you. You'll have the hummers there. And it's awesome. Also, it's the time of year too. It's bird month in Nebraska, by the way. We have over 400 species of birds that visit us in Nebraska or reside with us. Mm-hmm. And so just kind of where we sit in the country. But it's also the time of year to put out your orange slices in your bird feeder, right, or grape jelly, even right, outside of your RV, because right, we have the orioles, the neotropical birds moving through as well.
And they
Fun time.
They're beautiful and love to hear their songs as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So, South Dakota has a program called the Fitness Passport Challenge. Does Nebraska have anything like that encourages people to visit multiple sites and work toward a goal of maybe visiting more places than they had in previously?
Yes, we're part of two programs. One is our own. The other is part of the Nebraska Tourism Department. The first one is ours. It's called the Great Park Pursuit, and it's just what you mentioned. And at the end of it, there are prizes that you can enter after visiting so many particular state parklands. And then we're part of the Nebraska Passport Program, which that's visiting a lot of sites, including many of our state parklands, plus tourist sites here in Nebraska, and prizes also available after completing X number of visits with that as well. So yes, we are part of those two type programs.
Well, great. Well, Greg, thank you for visiting with me today. I really, really do want people to get outside and enjoy the outdoors, and visiting the state parks and recreation areas of the areas in which you live are excellent opportunities to do that, whether it's a day trip or a weekend or even an extended vacation. So, Greg, thank you for your time. Actually, I can't get away from having a conversation with you and asking you about your turkey hunting experiences this spring.
Yes, and I totally agree with what you have said there. Yes, I have bagged one hefty Jake already, called it in and shot it with my bow. And I'm still working on the shotgun end of things. I'm just being real selective and picky. In Nebraska, you get two turkey permits, two turkey tags, basically. And I don't want to be done this early. I like the show out there. And I'm picking mushrooms, and I'm watching nature, and I'm seeing a lot of birds. And my wife's like, Greg, I thought you had your turkeys all patterned. I do. But I'm just waiting.
That's right.
I don't want to be done now.
You're patient. You're patient.
That's right. But this is the perfect time of year for people to, if you're into the hunting scene, get your turkey permit and habitat stamp. If you're a Nebraska resident listening to us, and get out there, because our hens are nesting right now. This is their nesting time. And the toms are love struck. Hens don't want anything to do with them.
Right.
And so they're more apt to come to your calls and decoys.
You bet. No, it's a great time of year. Everything's, of course, you're south of South Dakota. things are greener, the leaves are more full,
Right.
and all of that. So
Right.
you're a little bit ahead of everything there. But
Yep.
well, Greg, again, thank you, and we need
Thank
to get
you.
together again. I'd like to talk more with you about trout fishing, and
Yes.
and
I
also
want to hear about your spring catfishing.
Oh, you
Sounds
bet.
like you're the catfish expert there.
Not at all, not at all. I like how they taste in the springtime, especially.
I agree there too.
But also some of the foraging. The last time we visited, I had some questions about some types of mushrooms that I didn't get to. So we'll have to try to see if we can get together sometime soon and talk about that.
Sounds great.
Okay. Well, Greg, again, thank you very much for taking
And
the time
thank
to
you
visit.
again.
You bet. Our immediate family has experienced cancer-related deaths as a result of leukemia, prostate, and ovarian cancer. It would be safe to say that every one of us has had our lives impacted by cancer in some way. A healthy diet, which can include wild game and fish, and exercise through outdoor activities, has the potential to improve a person's physical and mental health. At any age, if you are active, stay active. If you are not as active as you would like to be, it's not too late to start now as a way to improve your physical and mental health. And if you or someone you know is thinking of suicide or in need of crisis intervention, call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. Additionally, here are 3 ways for veterans and their loved ones to receive confidential crisis support, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Contact the Veterans Crisis Line, dial 988, then press 1 to be connected to a Veterans Crisis Line responder. If you would rather, you can chat online at veteranscrisisline.net/chat, or you can text 838255. To all our listeners, take some time to get outside, enjoy the outdoors, and experience its healing powers. With that, on behalf of Catherine and me, until next time.